Welcome everyone to Legion Gaming. I'm your host, Donnie, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Deucy.
Hello everyone.
Deucy, how are you this afternoon?
Well, not as good as I could be because I recently took a DNA test and I found out I'm 0% mutant.
Oh, that's really unfortunate. I'm the same way. Unfortunately, we don't have any special powers that we could flex here.
Yeah.
Outside of giving people what they want with the audio podcast format here.
We have the power of voice.
Yeah, as powerful as that can be. So if you haven't clued in from Deucy's little hint, today we have a really fun episode that I wanted to cover. It's the X-Men game retrospective. And for this, we're going to be covering pretty much the 8 and 16-bit eras, which I think is going to cover a lot of games on its own, because after this, there's a lot of X-Men games that kind of morphed into Marvel. So we're going to do probably a part 2, maybe part 3. We're not sure how we're going to kind of divvy it up. But nonetheless, we're very excited about this episode today. How about yourself, Deucy?
I am excited, yeah. I haven't actually thought about X-Men in a while because, they sort of got erased from Marvel when the evil Disney empire took over. But
oh, yeah.
They're making a comeback, and they've been showing up in little clues here and there in the MCU. And what game was it recently? Oh, not recent, but Ultimate Alliance 3.
Oh, yes.
Brought him back.
Yeah, that's right.
To prominence. So
an unfortunate game that seems to be mostly forgotten for whatever reason, which is really unfortunate because I love that game. I breezed right through it, but that's one game I do wish was on a more powerful console, unfortunately. I wish it was on at least PS4, Xbox, or got re-released, but it's a great game on Switch if you haven't played it.
I got to dive back into it because I got stuck on the second boss, I think.
Were you? I forgot who you got stuck on. I don't remember.
Was Mephisto in there?
Yeah, Mephisto was in there. I think it was one of his.
I think I got stuck on around him. But yeah, and since I've played, they've actually released all that the extra characters and DLC that they wanted to. So I might as well go back and restart fresh with everything possible.
Yeah, I need to get back to it too because I beat it when it came out, which is probably about 7 years ago at this point. That game's a little old, which is crazy. They're 6 or 7 years old, somewhere around there. And I got the DLC pack, and I think I played one of them, but I didn't get them, as they released. So it's just I totally forget about it.
What you guys should do over at HVG is an X-Men movie retrospective.
That would be really fun to do,
because there've been multiple eras of that, and Deadpool 3 is coming.
That's right. It would be a great tie-in, I would say. But before we get into our deep dive of X-Men, what else have you been playing, Deucy?
Wow. A lot of randomness because we had to take a little break here, and I've been busy with work, and it was really tougher work than usual. I had to step out of the office, so I was tired, and I just wanted to play little quick things here and there. So I picked up Retro Bowl again. I think I told you about it way back when I just randomly found it because I wanted like a Tecmo Bowl but modern. This isn't modern so much. I mean, I guess it is. It's got all of the teams you would expect from modern football, but very basic pixels, like 8-bit pixel art. But just really fun to pick up and play. The quarters are 2 to 3 minutes long, and they go by real quick because they don't follow regular football timing rules. And yeah, I can just breeze through almost an entire football season in about an hour or so.
Good God.
So that one's fun to, just pick up on my Switch, and when I have something on in the background, I'll play it. I also played a little of the Pokemon trading card game on Game Boy, because that's out now on the Game Boy Switch app. Mm-hmm. That one, I remember it being harder than it is now. Back in the day, maybe I just didn't fully understand the card games back then, but I always enjoyed the idea of it, and I thought it was more convenient than having physical cards and hundreds and hundreds of packs of those.
That's exactly why I was easy to convince my parents to buy me that, because like I mentioned on Donkey Kong 64, I was all in on the Pokemania, so I was willing to buy a whole bunch of cards, and I convinced them to give me the Game Boy Color one because it was perfect. It had every hell of cards in there, and I genuinely love that game. I beat that pretty quickly back then. Like I was addicted to that.
I borrowed it from you, I know, and I think you had the player's guide for it.
I still do. Yeah, I got it at Electronics Boutique.
Maybe I'll have to borrow the guide again.
You could.
But I'd recently seen on a Let's Play on YouTube that this guy was playing it was that game, but it was modded with like Gen 2 Pokemon.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
And so he was just breezing through that, and it inspired me to pick it up again. And I was like, well, if he can do it with those, I'll see what they're doing with these, with the originals. And yeah, I've already beaten like maybe one of the gyms, which is probably farther than I ever got on your copy.
Yeah, it's it could get pretty tough, especially if you're not familiar with how the game plays and the weaknesses and strengths and resistances. But I played it when it came out on the Switch, just for nostalgia's sake, and it's just as fun as I remember. The only downside is like it's a lot slower than I remember too, because it has text speed and everything, and it's probably doing whatever calculations in the background when you're drawing cards. But it's a great game. I genuinely love it, and if you don't like to deal with the free to playness of the Pokemon trading card game that's out now, like on iPad and mobile, it's fun enough, but you're bound to hit the wall in there. This, if you don't mind the old graphics, it's totally worthwhile playing if you have Switch Online.
Yeah, the old graphics still depict the original cards pretty well. It's kind of a trip down memory lane,
especially with it was Game Boy, or it was Game Boy Color enhanced, right? And Super Game Boy, so it looks pretty damn good on the color screen. Yeah. For me, I've been kind of in the same mood. Like I was on a good streak of beating a few games. Like I'd beaten Gravity Circuit, Prince of Persia: Lost Crown, and RoboCop. So I've been like kind of all over the place. I recently picked up Rocket League again, which has been really fun. Yeah. Every now and then I get that fix to play that game. I think Randy passively mentioned it pretty recently. I was like, God, I really want to get into it again.
He talked about it as a movie.
He did. Yeah, that's right. Maybe that's what it was. We were doing that episode for Hollywood Video Guys, which you should listen to, Hollywood Video Guys podcast. So I got back into it, and it's just as fun as always. Like I was intending to play a couple matches, and before I knew it, it was like 2 hours later.
What crazy collaborations have they been doing recently on that?
They have a Mandalorian collaboration now. So there's
weird.
There's a what's his freaking baby Yoda's name? Yogu?
Grogu.
Yeah.
Yogu.
Like Go-Gurts. They have that whole thing in there. But I don't really pay for the cars and like all the customizations it's playing.
I mean,
plus that game's so pick up and play, I don't really need it.
Once I got the DeLorean and kit, I didn't need anything else.
Yeah, I will say I'm a little salty I didn't get the Macho Man and Ultimate Warrior cards that Randy got, because they have that limited time, pack, which really, really sucks, but it's fine. And then the other game I've been deep into and I've been loving to death, because of course it's a fighting game, is Tekken 8. I have that on PS5.
Now that you've won a couple.
Yeah, well, I've always loved Tekken, and I've been pretty good at it, except for recently. Like I haven't played. I played 7. I didn't play much of 6. And then I was really excited for 8, and it's really, really good. The graphics are incredible. It's on Unreal Engine 5, so it looks amazing on PS5. The training options are ridiculous and extensive. There's a really cool story mode that is between Jin and Kazuya, like the father-son, and the whole family dynamic of the Mishimas, right? And it's like a short but sweet campaign. It's only like 4 hours, and it's a lot of fun. The story's like absolutely nuts. There's Tekken Ball, which is like the volleyball kind of game in there. And then I've been playing online. You saw me last week, Deuce. Like I was getting destroyed. Like I was 0-15, and then I started looking some videos up and then reading how to play King better, and I'm much better now. Like I'm actually winning more than I was before, which is to say I wasn't winning at all.
Yeah.
So now I'm like really into it, because I'm at that point where it's like I know I'm learning the game. Like I'm starting to learn other characters and how to fight against them, and it's fighting game bliss. That's all it really is.
Nice.
Anything else we've been playing, or is that should we end it there? Should we end that before we get to our X-Men extravaganza?
Yeah, nothing much more to mention. I did briefly play Gravity Circuit a little more, and God, that is hard. I mean,
I told you it gets pretty tough.
But it's funny because it's not deterring me. I just haven't beaten any of the levels that you can select.
Well, it's like it's one of those games where the more you do play it, at least from my perspective, the more you play it, the more you learn, right? Like you learn how much you can do. Like I found myself dashing a lot more, and also the different chip configurations too help your play style, because you can pick the different chips to have like a double jump, which I abuse the hell out of later. Like it's a double jump you can do at any time when you're jumping. So it was fun for me to learn that game, because once you realize the amount of abilities you have and flexibility with your controls, it makes it a little bit easier. But it's also like you have to learn the levels too and the bosses. And I'm very curious when you get to that boss rush and the final boss, what you'll think.
I got to get to the first boss first, man.
You got 7 more to go before you fight all 8 again. All right. Well, I guess with difficult games, let's go ahead and we'll start going in our main event here.
Perfect.
All right, Deucy, we are here. We are at our X-Men game extravaganza. So, if you're unfamiliar with the X-Men, it's a comic series that began in 1963 by co-creators Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. I'd be shocked if you hadn't heard of the X-Men at this point. Like, there's been, like Deucy mentioned, there's a bunch of movies. There's, comics have been going on for 50, 60 years. It's a huge phenomenon.
Wow.
That's
60 as of last year.
That's right, 60 as of last year, 60th anniversary, which is insane.
Yeah.
So it was inevitable that once video gaming, started to get big, that we were eventually getting X-Men games. And today we're going to talk about a bunch, starting from the Nintendo all the way up until about the PS1. That's kind of like our cutoff because we're kind of breaking this up in eras. So the last game we'll cover is X-Men 3 Mojo World for Game Gear, which was a 96 release. But we're
that late?
Yeah,
for Game
right?
Gear?
Super surprising for Game Gear. It was one of the last 12 games that were out on the Game Gear, which was really shocking to read. Because the Game Gear felt like it kind of dropped off. For me, like I was playing that when I was 9 or 10, so it was like 94, 95.
I mean, like I said before, it was the only Sega console we had in the house. And so I was still playing it a lot with the Power Ranger games and stuff that I had. But I don't remember getting new ones that much later.
Me neither. Like it really seemed like by 96, because N64 had come out, and again PS1, so I was into that, so I wasn't really focusing on Game Gear at all. And plus, it felt like it was kind of hard to find Game Gear games at that time. Like even in the store brand new, like I would get them on clearance more than anything else.
Oh yeah.
But before we get to X-Men 3 Mojo, we have to start with the first game that many of us played, and that was the Uncanny X-Men on the NES. This one was released in December 1989, so this is a pretty early release by our standards. Like I probably got my Nintendo when I was 4 in '89.
I hadn't even heard of the X-Men yet.
Yeah, and same for me. Like I think for us, we really got into the X-Men with the animated series, which was around 91, I believe, 91, somewhere around there.
91, 92?
Yeah. So this game was released in 1989. It's one of the earlier NES games, and we have to talk a little about LJN, which. If you're familiar with LGN and all the crap that they're associated with, they're that wonderful publisher that you see on all these games where they have like that rainbow logo and it says LGN. This was a toy company that was founded by Jack Friedman. He had gotten funds from his employer, Norman J. Lewis Associates. So he reversed the initials for LGN. Yeah, right, which is kind of fun. And they had shifted, and basically how they got into the game business is that they were heavily in the TV advertising, and they shifted funds for that to get into game development because they were starting to see licenses for like toys, especially first off. And that's where they really started dug in their heels, was in the licensing. So the first thing they licensed was from a show called Emergency. It's like this 1972 action medical drama that I'd never heard of.
I think my parents like that.
That seems like something my parents would have. Like, it was on Nick at Night back in the day. So that was, they got the license for that to make some toys, and it was the highest ever in 1982 at $250,000.
God, they made toys out of anything back in the day.
They really did. It was, they made a ton. It's insane how much LGN was involved in at the time.
So were they like, I know they were making the toys and they got the licenses for that, but then I feel like certain companies made action figures better, so maybe they decided, let's pivot to video games.
Well, they realized that there was money in there is what it was.
Yeah.
So they, what happens, they eventually got bought out by a company called MCA in the mid 80s for like $67 million, which is a pretty big acquisition in the 80s. Like that's a lot of freaking money.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money now.
Yeah.
But back then it's even more money. So at this point, LGN started to make games for the NES in 86. And then, interestingly enough, after the X-Men and Who Framed Roger Rabbit, LGN was sold to Acclaim in 1990. So it's kind of funny, I was looking into this.
Oh, wow.
And I remember this, yeah. But if you look on the X-Men box, or cart, and I should say, and the Who Framed Roger Rabbit one, there's that logo that says like Enter Active Games. That was like LGN's sort of gaming publishing name. And this X-Men game is one of the last ones to be published by that name. I think the last one was Who Framed Roger Rabbit, because I couldn't find another game they had released that was around that time. That would have been the last one. So after this was, when you just would see the LGN logo on there. So just to give you an idea of of what LGN has done in time, for the amount of licenses ruined. They had, what they ruined. Yeah, so they made games for Alien 3, Back to the Future for Nintendo, Back to the Future 2 and 3 on Nintendo, Beetlejuice, Friday the 13th, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Jaws, The Karate Kid, Nightmare on Elm Street, The Punisher, Terminator 2, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, True Lies, and like a ton of wrestling, sports, and other comic license games. So if there was some sort of licensed property at the time that was hot, LJN was probably doing a game for it at the time.
I remember seeing LJN a lot on my games back then, because it's that
logo. It's really iconic.
The rainbow logo and everything. And I do remember Maximum Carnage was like one of their few good ones.
Yeah.
So I always saw that. But I also, when I was even younger, we had a football game. It was just called NFL, and it was LJN.
That's one of the last ones I think they published under Interactive. I think.
And it was hard as hell. Like to call a play, you know, in Tecmo Bowl, you have to do up an A or left an A, down an A, you know, to kind of disguise it from your friend who might be playing with you. Well, they had that button combination for the plays in the LJN game, except the plays weren't on screen. You had to have a separate paper that came in the box.
Oh, that's funny.
That had all of the plays pictured.
Yeah, the ultimate blind pick.
You picked from there, and I was like, nope.
Yeah, I think game makers assumed a lot back then that maybe people did. Like, they would keep all the papers are in a box. Granted, now it's hilarious because there was so much more. But back then, like, you were expected to keep these kind of documents if you wanted to play a game correctly. Otherwise, I'd imagine if you and I played as kids and didn't have that, we'd just be blind picking plays and not knowing what's going on.
I mean, I had that, and I was still blind picking plays.
So with that, you know, the magic of LGN didn't last, you know, for eternity. It ended up getting shutting down by Acclaim in '94, and ironically, their company's name and logo was published or was used on a game in the Dreamcast in 2000. So they weren't technically an active company, but Acclaim, you know, owned them still technically, and they used their logo on a game called Spirit of Speed 1937, which
this feels like a troll. Like,
well, it's an awful game.
Yeah, like Acclaim knew it was awful, so they said slap the LJ on.
It really does feel that way. Yeah. So it's funny that like the last standing LJN had was on another garbage game that was on the Dreamcast, and they call it Spirit of Speed 1937, and the sense of speed in there is garbage.
You're really just thinking of the spirit of speed.
Yeah, like 37 is probably the top speed in that game, for all I know. So to frame, you know, that was to frame what's coming with the Uncanny X-Men, because LGN did publish this game. The developer, they're not totally sure who made it. It was either a company called Both Tech or Pixel. And, you know, no one really knows. Not that it matters.
How do they not know?
Because what LGN would do is they would just hire developers without really, you know, disclaiming who they were. They were just like farming these games out and saying like, make this game, this game. So they really didn't care who was making it.
Holy crap.
I think it was one of those things where they would shop contracts around and said, well, we'll do it for X dollars. And then
Fred over there is going to make this.
It's like, cool, we have the box identity, right, of the movie poster or the license.
Yeah.
What else do you need? We'll fool a bunch of kids, and it worked. Because the Uncanny X-Men, Deucy, is a pretty awful game.
Yeah, I actually never played it back then, luckily. Because I didn't know about them. And then I played it recently on your Steam Deck.
Mm-hmm.
And I only did the training mission, and I forgot that I had chosen training mission. So I was like, why am I stuck on these two rooms?
Mm-hmm.
But just even looking at gameplay on YouTube, I'm like, how do you figure this game out without just a ton of trial and error?
Exactly. And then with this game, the way this game is set up is it's loosely tied to the X-Men, probably the X-Men animation. It was like a pilot episode that aired in 1989. So it has some of the characters from there and some of the color schemes. Like Wolverine, for instance, he has like that iconic orange and like brown costume he's got on.
Brown and yellowish.
Yeah, brown and yellowish. And then you could play as Wolverine, Cyclops, Storm, Colossus, Nightcrawler, and Iceman. Now, you would expect with that kind of variety of characters, they all play differently, but in reality, you know, they really are broken down into two sort of sets. There's some with projectiles and some with not.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter. The collision detection in this game is just trash. You know, Nightcrawler can go through walls, but it's like, it almost looks like it's a glitch because he's just kind of clipping. And I remember, you know, the thing I remember about this game is the box art is amazing. Like this, again, it's one of my favorite box arts on the Nintendo. And I think that's what tempted me to play this. And I didn't get to play it till it was our elementary school friend named Ryan. He owned it.
Wow.
Yeah, so I had played a little bit at his house, but he really wanted to show me Final Fantasy VI, which I didn't know anything about. I didn't know anything about RPGs. So I played X-Men at his house. I'm like, oh, God, like, I thought this game was going to be so much better. Like, Wolverine, Nightcrawler, and I think Colossus, they all have melee powers.
Yeah.
And then Storm and Cyclops and Iceman, they have projectiles, and it's just, you know, they shoot like, it looks like a little square pixel at enemies, and it's really dumb.
When I was playing it, I noticed that it shouldn't be too hard because the projectiles are definitely better than the melee. So just go around shooting everything, which in the later games we'll talk about isn't always possible with stupid meters. But in this one, you got that, and the enemies drop a lot of health and power. So you're never really hurting. It's just very obscure.
Well, it's also...
You don't know where to go all the time.
Well, yeah, it doesn't tell you where to go, or it doesn't lead you on where to go properly. And then what happens is you shoot in such awkward angles that enemies can just run into you and damage you quickly. And, you end up dying pretty fast if you're not careful, just because you're overwhelmed. You really don't have that much control. Like, it feels so stiff.
There's also the team-up aspect where your CPU is controlling a second X-Men. Never give them a projectile guy.
Yeah.
Holy moly, that was that was bad.
If you can, and I don't know why you'd want to play this, maybe you just want to hell of it. But bring someone along with this, because it's better co-op, and I use the term kind of loosely.
Yeah.
Because even one player, you do have to pick an AI buddy, and they can die and will die. And I believe you can't use the X-Men character after that, at least for the level.
They die quick.
Yeah, because it's Nintendo AI. Like, they're just going back and forth. They're running into things. Sometimes they get stuck on walls.
I picked Cyclops and Colossus, I think, and you can switch between them, which is interesting. Like, for an early game like this, that was an interesting concept. It's just crap when you let go of Cyclops and he just starts 360 spinning and shooting in 4 directions constantly, like a machine gun.
It's this, I was disappointed with this now, but I was so disappointed back then with this game. Like, I wanted to love it so much because, again, that box art, which we posted earlier on Instagram at Legion Gaming Podcast. I'll probably post it again at some point. Because there's a lot of things. Like, I'm going to put up that Spirit of Speed thing too, because that's we have to show that off. But this game was just the ultimate disappointment, because you want to like this game, and I can't even call this a guilty pleasure. There's nothing pleasurable about this game. And then even worse, Deucy, even worse. Well, before I get to that, I do want to say that we should go through the bosses. There's only 5 of them. There's Boomerang, which I'm not familiar with, Sabretooth, Juggernaut, the White Queen, and the final boss is Magneto. So to get to the final boss, Deucy, this is absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, so this game has 5 levels and has a practice level that Deucy mentioned, which, what sucks about the practice level is that unless you know how to get out of it, you can't. Like, it's not something you could just, hit start and exit out of. You have to hit A plus start to get out, or reset the Nintendo. So once you beat the 4 levels, which are Future City Street Fight, Search and Destroy the Robot Factory, Subterranean Confrontation, and Battle Through a Living Starship is the last one. You unlock the final level with Magneto by entering a code. And what is really stupid about this game is that part of the code is printed on the actual cartridge art for the cartridge that is inserted in your Nintendo as you're playing it.
Yeah.
So the game was meant to tell you, it was meant to give you like a hint with each level that you beat, like part of a hidden message, which would be the other part of the code to unlock the final level, but it doesn't. So I'm not sure. I'm guessing Nintendo Power had to have told people how to get to the last level.
Yeah, I saw that. There's like a message at the end of the level, if you've done it correctly, where you get like red and white text, and the red text are the clues towards the thing.
I think it's something like that. Yeah. They meant it to be more overt, but I guess that was the compromise.
Even with the red, I, as a child, would not think to like memorize that or write it down anywhere.
Yeah.
I'd just be like, oh, they use 2 different colors. Oh, well.
Exactly. And then, again, like after you beat the 4 levels, it doesn't tell you anything how to get to the last level. You just assume it's just, you're at the main menu, it just has practice, there's nothing you can do. So you have to hold select, hold B, and hold up, and then hit start. And again, like most of that code, which is the B plus up and hit start, that is printed on the cartridge. So what I'm just imagining to myself, like if you're a kid and you beat the first 4 levels, you're not sure where Magneto is or the end, and then you find out that it's on the cartridge. Well, you just spent whatever time beating those 4 levels, and I have to take the cartridge out and look at it, because I don't think it was printed on the box. I didn't get to check that out. I'm assuming not.
Probably not, if this little screen capture you have here is what the box looked like.
It is.
It doesn't look like there's any little print anywhere like it is on the cart. I think I had a top-loading NES later on in life, and I don't know if you would have even been able to see it on that.
That's a good question. I would assume you might be able to, because I know the top loader.
It might have reached just to the bottom of the picture or something.
Yeah, because you do have like a little bit of the credit block, and it's above that, so maybe you'd be able to see if you had a top loader.
Yeah.
But no one has a top loader in 1989. That doesn't exist yet,
Very few people even had it when it came out.
Yeah. So suffice to say, this is generally regarded as one of the worst Nintendo games with good reason. So this one, it's like we have to start with this because this is a lot of the starts for a lot of us, and this game was just not a great foot to start on. It was just a pretty terrible game. It's hard to have any fun with it. Like there's nothing really good. So it's an unfortunate start to an amazing series.
Quintessential LJN right off the bat.
Exactly. And if you can't get enough LGN, they released another X-Men related game in 1991 with Wolverine. This one just stars Wolverine. And this one was developed by Software Creations. And they actually, they're a reputable developer. They did games like Silver Surfer, which I still love despite how difficult that game is. They did Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Terminator 2, Spider-Man the X-Men Arcade's Revenge, and a ton more. So they were very much in the licensed games at the time. And this one, Wolverine is kidnapped by Sabretooth and Magneto, and he's on a desert island essentially. He has to escape. And then the only other X-Men you meet here are Psylocke, Jubilee, and Havoc. Psylocke gives you it's called like a Havoc device where it summons Havoc when your health is low. I think it's like a super attack or something.
That's all she's there for?
Pretty much. Yeah, like she just makes her cameo.
She's a middleman.
Yeah, and then Jubilee's there to give you a scuba device so you could breathe underwater longer, which is kind of funny.
I'm surprised Jubilee is even warranted anywhere.
It's just a weird assortment of characters on here. And with this one, you play as Wolverine the entire game. I would say this one looks a lot better than X-Men by far. Like this one's a traditional side-scroller platformer and action beat 'em up kind of thing. The downside with this game is it's freaking hard.
Yeah, I played this one too when I played the X-Men game, and I liked this one better. Like, not even in air quotes. I liked this one.
It's a fun game outside the difficulty.
Yeah,
I actually enjoy this one.
It just has that classic Nintendo difficulty.
Yeah,
and also. Dumbly, when his claws are out, his life goes down.
Yes, so he has like a limited healing factor, and that's one prevalent problem we'll talk about throughout most of these games. Is that whenever you're using your mutant power, it either like drains health or drains a meter, which is the most dumbest thing. Even as a kid, I was like, they're mutants. Like, why should that drain energy? Like, it's really silly to have them done that way. So. If this game wasn't hard enough, you now have Wolverine's power damaging him. And then the other difficult thing in this game is that Wolverine doesn't have an invincible hit state. So when you're colliding with, enemies or hazards, you have to move because your health will drain instantly. There's no hit state. There's no invulnerability. So it's like you're being hit every single frame you're colliding. So that didn't help things either.
Wasn't there some knockback in that, though?
I don't remember if there was knockback. I can't recall because I remember getting stuck in fans and my health was just instant.
I got to the I want to say second level where I think you're on an airship or something like that, and there's like these platforms, and I could have sworn I got the typical Nintendo cheapness of getting hit and then bounced backwards into a pit of nothing.
Yeah, and this one, and I have a lot of memories about this one as a kid too because it's the same thing. Like the cover art is so badass. Yeah, it looks like an issue of a comic. Like it has Wolverine, like. Flying through the air with his claws, like it looks like this would sell me on the game, and it did back then. But when I played it as a kid, it's just like everything else, like every other comic game. I was like, this is just ungodly hard, but I love how it looks. It's still fun. This one I've never actually beaten either. There's 9 levels, and Sabretooth is the final boss, I think, and then Magneto's right before him.
That's funny to me.
I
mean, it makes sense when it comes to their storylines, but also like. Sabretooth above Magneto?
Yeah.
Why have Magneto in there at all?
I would say maybe because Magneto was the last boss in the Uncanny X-Men. Maybe they thought to switch it up. Plus, it makes more sense with Wolverine's rivalry. But it's just funny that he still included Magneto because they could have just made this like Sabretooth kidnapping Wolverine and throwing him on a desert island to escape.
It's side story. And Magneto, like... He totally owns Wolverine because magnets.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know what they were thinking, but I would say this one is, it's quite less offensive than the Uncanny X-Men. This one is actually playable.
For sure. Good job, LJN.
Yeah, so this one, I forgot to mention at the beginning of the intro, this is like, LJN did this one as well. They published it. But they had a different developer. Whoever they had on the X-Men game didn't do as well as Software Creations here. And so this one does have 9 levels like we mentioned. And this one, again, like I think a lot of people regard this as like a bad game, but I could say there's far worse on the Nintendo.
I think that's now just because LJN is on the box.
It might be.
But like, yeah, go ahead and play it.
Yeah, I would say, I don't know. I guess you might agree with me, Deucy, is since the AVGN has gotten more and more popular, I think like LGN is like they deserve a lot of hate, but maybe it's like one of those embellished hates at this point where people are like crapping on all their games when they had like, maybe they had 95% crapping games, but they did have a few good ones,
There was like 2% of good with, like I said, Maximum Carnage and
Yeah,
maybe
the
this
hidden
Wolverine.
Gems. Yeah, the Wolverine's a reasonable one, The Wolverine game gave us hope.
Yeah.
And then the next game, this is a huge one. This is the X-Men arcade game in 1992 that was published and developed by Konami. This game, Deucey, oh my God, this is like arcade legend to me. This is like one of the biggest and most grandiose arcade experiences you could have at the time.
Yeah, I want to say this was my first, not introduction to the X-Men. Like I said, that was probably the cartoon, but this was maybe my first introduction to video game form of X-Men. And, I didn't go to a lot of arcades back then, but when I did, I always looked for the cabinet. It was kind of, I want to say, rare for the places I went to because it was a big 4-player cabinet, which was new at the time.
It was huge. Well, there's only a couple at the time that were 4 that I could immediately remember that were this big. There was Turtles in Time. There was X-Men, which was huge. But they also had a 6-player configuration.
Oh, yeah, with
which
the 2
was
screens.
Huge. Yeah, it had the dual monitor setup.
Yeah.
And that thing was wide. So that was even more rare, too. I would see that, but it was always a treat to see that because, again, that cabinet looked amazing.
Yeah.
And this one was modeled after Pride of the X-Men, the animation. And this, unsurprisingly, in 1992, this is like one of the top 5 highest grossing arcades. It was nominated for the most played game and most innovative technology at the 1992 Amusement and Music Operators Association. It was like this, organization that recognizes entertainment at the time.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, so I didn't know it had gotten that much acclaim, but the playable characters in here, which you can tell are from Pride of the X-Men, there's Cyclops, Colossus, Wolverine, Storm, Nightcrawler, and interestingly enough, Dazzler.
Yeah.
Probably her only appearance in a game that I can remember. Maybe she was in Legends or Mutant Academy. I don't know if she was in anything else.
Maybe not playable, but she might have been a side character you meet.
Yeah. And then there's 8 stages in this game. I think they're all pretty iconic. There's the Sentinel Factory. Their first level you start in is New York City. There's Island M. There's like Mountain Ruins, Volcanic Base, Asteroid M, and the final battle. The boss is in here. So this game is built to be a quarter muncher, right? I think we can both agree on that, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's nonsense. And the bosses are complete garbage, but they look amazing. Like this is one amazing looking arcade game.
I played it finally when it came out on Xbox Live Arcade on 360, and it's actually easy when you don't have to worry about the quarters.
Oh, of course, yeah. The infinite credits, which I think people at the time, reviewers were like kind of knocking it for them. Like, no, like why would I want limited continues on this? I want to see the end of the game. I don't care if it only takes 20 minutes.
Yeah, no, like when I breezed, because you could exploit the super moves because naturally in these brawlers you use a super move, it takes off some of your life bar. I don't care. I've got infinite lives. Let me use a super move at every screen.
I remember using Colossus's giant Hulk up thing where he uses like wild scream. Right?
Yeah,
that was abused a ton. And like, I remember hearing that at the carousel, which is our childhood arcade. I remember hearing that walking through the arcade like that giant.
Yeah,
and like I was like, oh, someone's playing X-Men, someone's playing as Colossus because you could hear that. So needless to say, this is like one of the most iconic arcade experiences you can find. Unfortunately, there's really not many ways to play it. Like Deucy mentioned, it was released on 360 and PS3 in 2010, but it got delisted in 2013.
Yeah.
I can still play it because I have my 360, but you can't buy it anywhere except for one way, and that's the Arcade 1-Up cabinet, which it's a 4-player cabinet. It's like a miniature version of it. It's like a 3/4 size, so it's a little tight squeeze. But, if you don't have any other to play it and you have $500 extra bucks, like that's a great way to play this game. I have a hard time. I don't know if there's any other games with it. I have a hard time kind of grappling with $500 for X-Men because, it is a short game at the end of the day, like with infinite credits, and like you'll get your kicks out of it for that one playthrough.
I'm surprised it's not on that cabinet that you have with all the Marvel vs. Capcoms.
I wish, yeah. I mean, you could probably mod it or something, but yeah, I wish that.
But then you'd only have the 2.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say, like, if you can get your hands on this one, play it on an emulator. If you can get Arcade 1-Up. Unfortunately, it's just really unfortunate. This is like one of those arcade games that's probably going to get lost to time at some point because I don't know when they'll ever release this. Like, I don't know what interest Disney would have to re-release this game ever again.
Well, I also don't know what the holdup was for so long before it came out on the 360 and PS3.
Yeah.
And then once again, we'll find ourselves that way. Like, for some reason, they just refuse to put out because if they re-release it on Series X and PS5, people will pay money again.
They will.
To
People
get
will
it.
play for a physical version if they could. Like, just to get. I mean, they'll have that one game on a cart. They'll pay $50 to get it on a physical cart.
Yeah.
Just to have forever and play it on the Switch or something. So it's unfortunate. Hopefully we'll see it again, but I don't have much hope. So the next game, Deucy, another LGN hit. This one was released on pretty much everything. It was released on the Genesis, Super Nintendo, Game Boy, Game Gear, and we're talking about another game that has an amazing cover, Spider-Man and the X-Men in Arcade's Revenge. Deucy, what is your experience with this one? I would say back then, and have you played it recently? Did you get to play this one? Yeah?
Yeah, I own it now on both Super and Sega, and I even did a little side-by-side comparison. Like, literally, my Super Nintendo is hooked up to component cables, and my Sega is HD. Mm-hmm. So I had them on two different outputs, and I was playing them back-to-back. I would play a level of Super, compare that with the Sega one. Back then, I didn't play it when it first came out. I had played Maximum Carnage first, but I had seen it covered in Nintendo Power, and I really wanted to play it, like just from the maps they showed and what the levels would be like.
The screenshots looked amazing because that's what sold me too before I rented it. Yeah,
I was like, hey, this looks like finally a good X-Men game, or I think maybe myself, I thought of it more as a Spider-Man game back then, but it could be both. They all had equal amount of levels and everything. Playing it now though, it's hard, just like Wolverine and any other LJN old game. And it's weird because you know how I go back and forth and I usually prefer Super Nintendo versions, but both Super and Sega have downsides.
They do.
Like, it's weird how different and similar they are. Sega, once again, kind of like Mortal Kombat, it's lacking a lot of the sound effects. Like, if you get hit, your character doesn't make a noise. Spider-Man's web doesn't really make the same noise. It makes this very faint sound. And when he sticks to walls, it doesn't really do much. Even picking up those little tokens in the first level doesn't make any noise. But I kind of like that, because when Super Nintendo comes around, it has way better music, but the sound effects are so annoying.
There's some really bad ones in here. I remember that vividly.
The sound for his spider sense is just an annoying, like,
it's persistent too,
staticky sound, and then like every time you get hit, and you get hit a lot, it's just a same sound effect every time. I also noticed his stickiness to walls is more active in Super Nintendo than Sega.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like, I was having a problem just dropping down a narrow shaft.
Yeah.
He would stick to the wall and I barely touched anything. Sega, boom. I had to like go out of my way to make sure he was sticking to a wall. I was like, how do you... I know it's developed by two different people, I believe.
It's by the same company, actually, Software Creation. So they're the ones who did the Wolverine game. And
Flying Edge, because Flying Edge comes up on...
Well, here's what's funny about that. I wanted to bring that up because I have this notated. But back in the Nintendo days, Nintendo kind of tried to regulate how many games a developer could make.
Oh, that's right.
Right. So what a lot of companies would do, like Konami, is they would have another brand like Ultra Games, which released like Metal Gear and a bunch of others, because that was sort of their way to circumvent the limit of releasing games. So LGN did something similar, but with Sega, they have a Flying Edge brand. So I recognize that logo immediately because I played a ton of wrestling games like Super WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, and I remember seeing that Flying Edge logo. So it's interesting to me that Spider-Man and the X-Men for Game Gear and Genesis were under Flying Edge, but they're LGN.
Yeah. Oh, okay, that explains it. So it is still, because I just assumed, LJN. I know they did this.
Yeah.
So I just assumed they were on both. It's funny that back then games got ported to everything all at once, but they had to use these side companies to circumvent that, when you'd think, no, they just have to do this. Why are you limiting that?
Yeah, it didn't make any sense, because it's also like, how regulated was it that they, a ton of companies just had like these subsidiaries that were releasing games under, right? Like, it had to, they had to send checks to LGN, right, or something.
Yeah,
right, for these royalties wherever else that was selling.
That's funny. Are you guys sharing a building?
That's really, yeah, exactly. Right, you have office space together. Is this a collaboration? Yeah. So this game, I was really disappointed with it, because again, like the cover art looks amazing. It's Spider-Man the X-Men. Like, how could you go wrong? And they went very wrong. The premise of this game is kind of fun though. The premise is that the villain Arcade, he leads Spider-Man the X-Men to deactivate something called Security Eyes, which I think is sort of like his monitoring system. And what it does is it makes these simulations that torture their victims until they ultimately kill them, which is kind of ironic given how difficult this game is. That it can feel torturous at times.
Yeah.
But it's just way too difficult. I don't like that some of the levels are kind of maze-like. Like, especially even the first level with Spider-Man, it's kind of like a maze, a little bit of a labyrinth.
Yeah, it's a good thing they do have that spider sense that points you to the next little thing, even though it points you in a general direction, like as the crow flies, not literally where you have to turn.
Yeah.
Also, Storm's level is a maze, plus you have to swim, unfortunately.
Which, if I can't recall, but was her fear in the cartoon, was her fear like water or something like that?
It might have been.
Is that what? Because I thought that might have been the twist in this game. Is like he's sort of tormenting the X-Men with some of their fears or some things, some of their vulnerabilities, I guess.
Well, I mean, it does make sense. Even if she wasn't really afraid of it, like, she's all about flying.
Yeah.
And you're not going to do that
and
in
you're
water.
swimming in this level.
That is, though, one level that looks way better on Super Nintendo. Like, Sega never really got water graphics right.
Yeah, and if I remember for the Sega version, there was some issue with like transparencies or water effects.
Yeah.
Like something looked really like an ugly grid.
It looked like
messy.
static.
Yeah, so it's unfortunate. When I rented, I played the Super Nintendo version. I played the Sega one a lot later. And you're right. Like this one, it's hard to say what version is better because they're both equally not great for their own reasons.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because, again, like you want to love this game and they just make it very, very difficult to love it. And it's also like, even with the premise, like with, it's meant to torture its what do you call it? It's victims. And it's like, we're playing these games. It's like, I want to play Storm flying and shooting thunder. Why am I swimming underwater? And like Gambit, he's being chased by like a giant, I think it's like a giant cog or something like that. And like I don't know if his cards use up his abilities or what they do, but
yeah, there's a card meter, which as a kid, I always thought that kind of made sense because a deck of cards is 52.
Yeah, but I could see that less with Cyclops' visor and his optic blast, right? Because it's like his eyes, and unless his eyes get tired, I don't know. It's like, oh, I really got to rest here. I got to take a nap.
It's funny that Gambit has always been my favorite X-Men, no matter what form, like comic or anything. It's a shame that he hasn't had a proper introduction into the movies. Mm-hmm. But God, they screwed him over in this game because you're constantly running from that giant wheel thing.
Yeah.
I just want to be able to run around, like in a game later that we'll talk about. Like, I just want to be able to run around, throw my cards at the enemies, and beat them up.
Yeah. It's unfortunate because, I really desperately want to like this game. And it's like one of those things where you have to suffer through. Maybe it's better with an emulator because, there's save states and whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I was thinking that while I was playing. I was like, this would go much better if I could save right after this level.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because it's like you don't want to, you want to play a game as it is most of the time. And like it sucks that for a game like this, you have to play with save states because, of course, there's speedrunners who get through it like nothing.
Yeah.
However they do it. But it's like for the general person, the casual person, like you just want to enjoy and play as Spider-Man the X-Men, not suffer through it like it is. The next game on our list, Deucy. This one was released in 1993 for the Genesis. This is one of my personal favorites because I grew up with it. This is just called X-Men. This was published by Sega and was developed by Western Technologies. They were an American developer who were known for pioneering the Vectrex, which is like this vector-based console that also had a display, and the Microvision, which was this 1979 portable console. It's just like had a little interchangeable cartridge. I think it was basic stuff like Breakout or these like Game & Watch type games.
Was it like one of the first that used?
I think it was one of the first, yeah, and it has batteries.
It was after Atari, but still,
yeah, but portable at least.
Yeah.
So they developed this game, and then the other games they developed wasn't anything that special. It was Art Alive, which I remember on the Genesis, but I didn't play it. They developed Joe Montana 2 Sports Talk Football, and the Minister 6-game cartridge, which came with the Ministers, like they're like the minigame collection Super Scope had.
Oh yeah,
right. So this game. Also pretty damn difficult, but the premise is pretty cool on this. In this game, a virus has infected the Danger Room, which is sort of like the X-Men's training room, and as such, it's turned all of these simulations into things that can actually kill the X-Men. So your whole intent with this game is to go through each of the levels and eventually destroy the virus so that you can escape the Danger Room and not die.
Someone who wrote this story was a big fan of Star Trek, where their holodeck was constantly breaking down and endangering the crew.
Yeah. So this game, I remember renting this as well, and I loved it because, again, the box art is freaking amazing. It looks incredible. It's got Wolverine like lunging at you, Cyclops in the background blowing his optic blast. Gambit's back there.
This was probably one of the first ones that was heavily influenced by the cartoon.
It is definitely so. Like this definitely looks like the 1991 or the animated series is out in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And in this one, you could play as Wolverine, you could play Cyclops, Nightcrawler, and Gambit. Excuse me. And then you can also pick up these summoning icons, and they do like a special attack. So like Storm comes in, and she has like this giant storm that comes through. Iceman, like it's where he comes across the screen on his on an ice sled.
Ice sled, yeah.
Yeah, and then that can also act as a platform as well, so you can kind of skirt across the level with it. And then Archangel, which I thought was like the most badass summon. He comes by and like he just shoots the missiles from his angel wings, And there's also Jean Grey, which she's really more of like a character who picks you up from pitfalls and stuff, which I thought was really nice because the jumping in this game is pretty stiff, but it's great that you can jump off a cliff and you won't die instantly. You'll lose a little bit of health, but Jean Grey, like, it's pretty cool. She picks her up with her mind and places you safely on a platform.
I noticed when she did that, I don't know, it kind of randomized. Sometimes it would take your mutant meter and sometimes it would take your health.
It was funky. I was noticing that when I played it because I played it last week in preparation for this, and I was like, there's a lot I remember about that game, and then there's some things where, I remember Jean Grey where I was like, oh, that's weird, like, my health's down and maybe my mutant power. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
So with this game, like Deucy just mentioned, like there is a mutant power meter, which really sucks because there's nothing more deflating when you want to play as X-Men and their badass powers and you can't use their powers.
Yeah. Or you can at first and then you don't realize that it doesn't replenish.
Yeah, like Wolverine in here, he has a healing factor and it's pretty limited, but it does work. But it sucks when you have his claws out where a lot of his attacks are enhanced, like he has more range. He has like this really cool like slashing attack when he floats down. Mm-hmm. All that uses your mutant meter, and you can only replenish those by grabbing pickups around the level. And I think it replenishes, but it's really really slow. Nightcrawler can teleport, which helps a lot because you can teleport your buddy through like walls, which I remember using with my little brother because we would. It's like we'd skip sections of the level just by doing that. Just like going through, we'd find like the right spot. So that was useful. Cyclops has his optic blast, of course, and Gambit has cards that you can charge. And this game, it's freaking hard. Like I mentioned, like there's, I think there's like 8 or 9 levels.
God, really?
Yeah, they're pretty freaking difficult. And it's like not one is easier than the other.
I haven't seen past the temple at the end of the first level.
Yeah, and so that's that one. I could do that one, not with my eyes closed, but I knew that one, front and back because I played it so much from game
just
over.
over and over.
Yeah.
That's another terrible commonality between all of these games that we're talking about. No continues.
Yeah. Nightmarish. Like I've had infinite continues where if I could at least start at the beginning of the level, like the level I'm on, I could deal with that.
Yeah.
But to just get game over and be thrown at the title screen, like it is freaking tough. And I'm not even sure if you could collect extra lives in here. Maybe there are a few, but it's not enough.
Yeah, no, I don't think I saw any in this one. But yeah, it's just ridiculous that we're this far into 1993 and there's not a continue in sight.
And we should also, again, reiterate that at this point, X-Men was really, really hot. I mean, granted, Power Rangers was in 93 as well, but the X-Men animated series was on fire because that like propelled the X-Men in like mainstream for kids. Like even before the comics, I don't know how they were at this time. Like I don't know how popular they were, but I would see the X-Men and how popular they were at this time were because of the cartoons that were out. For sure. And then that of course informed all the games. But you're right, like we're this late in and it's like they're still making levels and games that are just insanely difficult. IGN did like this game despite the difficulty. They put it on their list of 15 really, really, really hard games. They put it on there for its unfairly placed enemies, ridiculously annoying jumps, and near impossible to beat bosses, which I would agree with. I wouldn't say they're near impossible, but they're stupidly difficult. Yeah, because one thing I noticed in this game is the bosses don't really have like a clear hitbox, and you can't really tell when they've been hit. So it's like you kind of have to time it, but every boss has different timing, right? Because they recover differently. And I can tell you that I've never beaten this game legitimately. Yeah. Granted, I haven't tried it as an adult to really try to get through. But I did use a level select code back then, which is insanely complex. Yeah. Because I have some of it here, but it's like you have to unplug controller 2, and with player 1, you have to hold AC down and hit start at the title screen, and then disconnect controller 1 when Magneto appears on the screen, plug it in the controller port 2, press start. Then put it in the port 1, select your difficulty, and then in the danger room on the right side, there's all these panels. There's like, I don't know, 8 or 9 of them. Each one of those correspond to a level in the game.
Oh.
So you could just hit down and C in front of one of them, and you get transported right to those levels.
Wow.
And that's how I beat the game. But this game pulls the rug out from under you all over again because it breaks the fourth wall with its ending.
Oh, that's right.
Right? So when you get to the end, you beat Mojo, and then there's like this floating computer that you destroy, and then the computer brings up the message that says like, reset the computer. I forgot what else it says.
Reboot the system.
Reboot the system or something. And what you have to understand is you literally have to reboot your Sega Genesis.
Yeah.
And it's like the Genesis one is it's not touchy, but there's sort of like a hard reset where you hold it, and then there's like the soft reset where you just kind of tap it. You have to do the soft reset because if you do the hard reset, you're resetting the entire game starting from level 1 again. So once you do the soft reset, then you get a message. It's sort of like, the virus is cleansed or whatever, and you get your one-screen ending, which is really silly.
I recently saw, it might have been a TikTok or like an Instagram short or something, where it was this guy playing this game, and the little caption was like, it was something about like the moment of truth or the prayer or something, and they got to that part in the game. He pushes the button, and then there's like this moment of hesitation where like, did it work? And then the title screen pops up, and he's so dejected.
I'm sure that's what a lot of kids felt back then when they learned of that. I do remember doing that, but I read it again like in a magazine or something back then. Like my buddy Alex, he was always playing with these games with me, and he was 4 years older. So I remember doing the code in X-Men, that insanely complex code, and there's also a level skip with Gambit, which is fun. It's kind of a glitch. But if you hold A, because Gambit can charge his cards and they do more damage. I should say here, his Gambits are kind of weird, or excuse me, his cards are weird where like they flirt around the screen. They're kind of homing, but not really.
Oh yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, so you can charge his cards to do more damage, but if you hold the charge while you're going through the danger room, basically to start the level, and then let go, I guess it skips the level in the first 3 levels. And the reason you can't skip more than that is because you're out of mutant power at that point. So you have to play from level 4.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, so this game is beatable. Just feel free to use codes. Unfortunately, it's much like many of these other games on this list, it hasn't been released anywhere. Like it's not on any collections. It's stuck to the Genesis, or you're playing on an emulator.
I feel like this was a prime candidate for Game Genie back in the day.
It was like this game. It's for me, it's definitely a guilty pleasure, just because of its difficulty. But it's one of those games you could use Game Genie, especially if it had infinite lives or something, or even infinite mutant power would be perfect.
Oh yeah,
to be honest with you. Yeah. The next game on our list, Deucy, this is a little bit of a smaller one. So we're going to cover the Game Gear ones here as well. They're not terribly remarkable, but nonetheless, there's part of sort of the, they're part of the 8 and 16-bit eras, and I think they're a little bit worth talking about for what they are. So the first game was just called X-Men. It was released in 1994. This one was published and actually developed by Sega. And this is a pretty cool game. It was one of the top-selling games in February '94. It got a ton of great reviews at the time. Like, they all were saying, like, how, it had great graphics. They loved the action. They thought the levels were pretty long and complex, and they were enough to, quote, keep your battery bill high. and the challenge is strong enough to keep you busy in the back seat for that long drive to grandma's house.
Long and complex level is an understatement.
It is. And also, I would say it's a little bit of a bitter pill to swallow with your Game Gear with the limited battery life on 6 AA's on that thing.
Well, that's why I had the battery pack back in the day.
The rechargeable? Me too.
Yep.
Yeah. So this game you could play Cyclops, Wolverine, Storm, Rogue, Psylocke, Nightcrawler, and Iceman. There's 6 levels in here. There's like the Morlock Tunnels, Savage Land, Hellfire Club, Madripoor, Avalon. This one I remember playing at our friend Vito's house. Like he owned this, and that's how I learned about this game, because I know there's an X game on the Game Gear. I actually like this game. Like, I think the level design is not great at times. Like we were playing earlier, where you just got lost in the first freaking level because it's like a labyrinth, and then there's these stupid platforms that you don't know they're there because they have such long cycles.
Yeah,
right.
I was looking around going, oh wait, here's one randomly moving. But does it come back? It took like a minute for it to come back.
Yeah, and it's like. It's all trial and error with these games, which I forget about because of all the modern games we're used to. So it's like when I go back to an old game like this, especially on the Game Gear, I tend to forget all the, the quirks, we'll call them, the design choices they had.
For as long and complex as the level was, still more fun than Batman Forever.
Oh, easily, yeah.
But also, I was impressed with, because I never played this back then, but I was impressed with like Cyclops' eight-way shooting, and you wouldn't expect that from a game with 2 buttons, a punch and a jump.
Yeah, that's what immediately struck me is they did pretty well with the mutant powers, and it had, it has the same pitfall that I'll call it a pitfall, where it's like you have limited mutant powers, but it seems like they're pretty generous on pickups, so you're not totally out. And you can, there's heart pickups for your health. Enemies aren't damage sponges, which is nice. Like they usually get killed in one hit if you're using your mutant power. And then with each level you finish, you do unlock a new X-Men to play as, which is really cool. And then one interesting thing is like when if you die in a level with an X-Men, they're knocked out of commission essentially to the end of the game, if I recall correctly.
That's kind of a common theme too with some of the games we've been playing, or some of the ones we've been talking about, except for I think in Spider-Man and X-Men, if you lost one, that was game over, right? Oh yeah, because they all shared the same.
They had the same life pool, yeah. And then the Genesis game, you just couldn't use them anymore. So that also made it difficult. Like if you got further in the game, like you ideally want to have more X-Men because the more X-Men the better.
Yeah.
So if you're down to like Nightcrawler midway through the game, it's like you're gonna have a tough time beating the rest of the game. So again, like this game wasn't that remarkable. Like it sold well. It got pretty solid reviews for a Game Gear game. I also tend to think, before we leave on this one, I think it's a pretty damn gorgeous Game Gear game. Like there's some really awesome cutscene portraits. I think the sprites for all the characters look really great. Like they look better than a lot of the Nintendo ones I've seen up to this point.
Yeah, I can make out Cyclops and when his little eye laser is active and ready to go.
Yeah, it's really cool. So when you have to hit start to activate your mutant power, but yeah, Cyclops has this really awesome effect where like he has like this red shimmer over his visor.
Yeah,
and it just stays in one place, but it's cool because it does pulse like it's charged up. But it's a really awesome effect. Like it's pretty effective, Okay, so the next game, Deucy, this one, another disappointment.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for me, Wolverine Adamantium Rage for the Super Nintendo and Genesis, released in 1994, published by Acclaim. And this is one of those games that was developed by 2 different studios. So that means you're having 2 different experiences on there. So the Super Nintendo one was developed by Bits Studios. They did a ton of licensed games like Last Action Hero, Terminator 2, and Spider-Man Return of the Sinister Six, which I have some fondness for that game. It's not the greatest. It's really hard, but I have some fondness for Sinister Six.
I can't remember if I've played that one yet. I always wanted to.
You might have borrowed it from me on Game Gear, if anything, because I did own that on Game Gear, and Vito had it. I think he owned it on Nintendo, if I recall.
That was another one I would see in Nintendo Power and really wanted to play.
Yeah, right. Yeah, especially because again the cover art was awesome in that one. And the Genesis version was developed by a developer who has a great name, Teeny Weeny Games.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they developed Predator 2 and the Incredible Crash Dummies for Game Gear, WrestleMania Steel Cage Challenge for the Game Gear, and Discworld for Saturn, which I've heard about that game, but I haven't played it myself. But nonetheless, they developed the experience for the Genesis version of this game. Both versions, like I said, were developed independently from each other, and for the most part, like, the storyline is similar. I think the opening storyline differs, and then the gameplay is pretty similar except for a few key things. So one thing I vividly remember about this game is a time limit, which to me, this is one of the sins of gaming, is when you give me a time limit in any game, especially if it's a strict time limit, or I might die at the end of it.
Well, any game in 1994, I mean, Mario had it way back in 1985, but then
it was generous.
But then we grew out of it.
Yeah, like I would say back then it was pretty generous because that was also for points.
Yeah.
In here, it's just so you could die.
Yeah.
Because when time runs out, so both versions have their own time systems on here. So, and also both of them have their own distinct ways of completing a level. So for Super Nintendo, you actually have to defeat a certain number of enemies within that time to pass the level. And Genesis is more like on navigation. It's like a platformer. It's more on like light puzzles and stuff like that. So Genesis version for me was the preferred version, but it still wasn't a great game. So back to the time limit though, the worst thing about this is that there's a character named LCD, which I'm not familiar with from the X-Men universe. I'm not sure what she does.
Liquid crystal displays?
Something like that. Yeah, LCD. Yeah. So when time expires, she tracks Wolverine down and just flat out kills him. And when that happens on Super Nintendo, it's just a game over, no matter what level you're on. If she catches you, like you can kind of see her approaching, and I think there's like gates you can kind of cross, but the Super Nintendo ones it has like that labyrinth kind of design where it's like you're going up, down, around, so it's like you have to escape her.
That was popular for the time.
It was, but I'm also thinking to myself, like, you're Wolverine. Like,
yeah.
Why are we running away from? I think she's like a little girl who's chasing her or something. I'm not sure what she does.
Oh, little girls are the creepiest in horror movies.
I guess so. Yeah. And the Genesis version does have that same mechanic, but you have lives. So it's like, if she catches catches you, then you lose one of your lives. And it does have a countdown timer, which I think is probably a little bit more helpful than the Super Nintendo one. The Super Nintendo one, I think you just hear her approaching and you're just like, oh crap, like I'm gonna die pretty soon.
Yeah.
This game, it's like, it's pretty unremarkable. This is another game where, again, all of these games have amazing covers. This is how they sold me back then. I totally didn't go with the fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice thing. I just kept fooling myself with all these games,
I don't even recognize this one. I think I've seen this cover for Sega, but I didn't even know it was on Super Nintendo. I don't remember it at all.
Yeah, it's definitely forgettable because I think if you played it, like, you'll get your kick out of it for a few minutes. You're like, all right, this is pretty bad because. Like Wolverine, the Super Nintendo one, like he has less attacks. Like he just has like one main attack, but he can climb walls like with his claws. Like he can, claw into the ceiling and everything. Genesis one has a little bit more combat focus, or it's more action focused. So he has like a lot more claw attacks, and he has like a double jump. He also has like this cool quick roll and lunge. So he feels a little bit more like Wolverine in that sense. But the Super Nintendo one I know was cool because, it was pretty cool seeing Wolverine climb up a wall with his claws.
Yeah.
I don't think it helped you much though.
No.
So yeah, this game, mostly unremarkable. I would say, with all these games, I'm just going to tell you, like, you should try them out if you have any interest in them. But most of these, we'll call it the ones that you really absolutely have to play.
I haven't even seen this in the shops that we go to.
I don't see it either. I have it on my shelf.
Yeah.
You can play it there. But yeah, this one I don't see too often either. But I think it's just one of those games that came out, no one cared about it, and, no one really gave attention to it because even reviews were just mixed. Like, they just thought that, everything was pretty routine. They thought it was overly challenging, and the controls were bad.
Was it even covered in a Nintendo Power?
That's a good question. I don't know. I didn't check to see if it was reviewed in there. I'd imagine it had to have been at least reviewed, maybe like in a sidebar or something.
Yeah, I don't think it got any like pages of
no way
coverage.
I can't imagine Nintendo was all in on Wolverine Adamantium Rage. At least the title is pretty cool looking, or
yeah.
Cool sounding, I should say. So as far as games that you absolutely have to play from this list, I think you and I do, so you can absolutely agree that this next one is definitely one of the best ones we've played.
This is the top of the top.
I would say this is the top out of the assortment we have here, although there's two that I think could be kind of claiming that spot. I know there's definitely top three we could talk about, too.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we'll do that at the end. We'll give sort of like our top three.
I bet we'll have the same ones.
I think so. We'll come to a consensus of sorts.
Yeah.
But the game we're talking about here is the Super Nintendo classic X-Men Mutant Apocalypse, which was released in 1994, published and developed by our favorites, Capcom.
That's why it was good.
Yes. So, Deucy, would you like to kick us off with what you thought of X-Men Mutant Apocalypse back then? Maybe what you think of it now, or just what was your experience with this, I would say, amazing top 10 SNES game?
This might have been the first X-Men game I played. If I'm really thinking hard about it, I might have even played it before I got the chance to find an arcade cabinet and play that one. And I do remember vividly first playing it at our friend Eric's house. It was like his birthday or for some reason we were over there. Mm-hmm. And I just remembered it's a single player game, but we easily just picked a character and passed the controller around and said, you play as this character until you beat the level.
God, I do remember. It's funny because I hung up with Vito this week. He mentioned Eric. I was like, I don't remember Eric at all. So it's funny that you also mentioned Eric.
Yeah.
And you mentioned us playing X-Men Mutant Apocalypse there. And I remember that now, but I still can't remember what he looks like. But anyway, continue.
There were a couple games that I played for the first time ever at his house. Kid Clown and Crazy Chase was there too.
Oh, you played that there?
Yeah.
I never knew that game existed back then.
That was a great game. But yeah, we played we played this one, and I remember I was Gambit. Mm-hmm. And so even to this day, I can breeze through Gambit's level because that's the only one I played. I want to say you were...
I think I had Psylocke.
You were Psylocke.
And she was the hardest level by far. Her and Beast.
Still is.
Yeah.
And I don't know, if Vito was there, I want to say he was Beast. Or maybe Cyclops. One of those. And I know Eric was Wolverine because Wolverine was the most popular. And we're like, hey, birthday boy, it's your house. But after that, I could not find this game. I could never find it to rent, or I could see the box, but it was always rented out because it was definitely popular back then. Yeah, and
I remember renting this after that because I hadn't heard this game before then, and I don't know if he had rented it, whatever the case was, but I was immediately sucked into this game. One of the big things for this game is that it has Street Fighter inputs for the moves, which that's my bread and butter. Or as Randy says, it buttered my bread, or whatever he said it was.
It breads his butter.
It breads his butter. Excuse me. Yeah, I couldn't even mess that up intentionally.
You got it right on accident.
Yeah. But yeah, so it had Street Fighter inputs for the moves. So I was right at home with this, and what this did that we immediately noticed was infinite mutant powers. If you could pull off the moves like the button combos.
Yeah.
You could do them all you want. You want to throw out 700 Cyclops Optic Blasts right there, you could stand there and do it. You want to, and then Wolverine's claws, they're already out.
The inputs for Cyclops, though, were about as good as Mortal Kombat's inputs.
Oh, I could do it really well, though. I mean, they're like Street Fighter. I mean, I think it was down forward and down to forward, that kind of stuff.
It was down forward and then forward to down. Yeah.
Yeah, for the lone one. And he had forward Y to do the slide kick thing.
Yeah.
Which was really good for that, the watery area.
Which we did that over and over again when we couldn't get anywhere.
Yeah, and this game's graphics, it's amazing. Like, the graphics in here still hold up today. The sprites look incredible. Like, they look like, Street Fighter sprites, but, the X-Men in the game.
The sound effects are amazing. These are some of my favorite, I think.
Well, it's funny because you catch some of the sound effects from Street Fighter in this.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, like all of Wolverine's hits, they're Vega's claw sounds.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And then I looked at the composer because I love this soundtrack. It's one of my favorite soundtracks on the Super Nintendo, and it was done by Setsuo Yamamoto, and you would recognize him because he's done everything from Aladdin Super Nintendo, the Street Fighter Alpha games, Final Fight 2, Street Fighter 2 Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition, and most notably for us, Mega Man X. So it's no wonder the soundtrack just kicked off right with all the right beats.
No wonder it sounds exactly like Mega Man X.
It does. It's so freaking good. Like I'll probably intersperse that somewhere around here, I'm sure. And this game, I would say, like, if you can find it, it's pretty inexpensive for the cartridge only. I think it's probably like, I don't know, less than $20, somewhere around there. And the box copy, which again, this game has amazing box art.
Yeah.
And I would say overall, the difficulty in this game, it's balanced. Like, I would say each character has their own specific level, which is kind of tailored to their abilities, and they each have a boss. And after you beat those initial 5 levels, there's another 3 or 4, and they all take place in like different parts of Genosha until you eventually end up on.
Are those? Because I think I've only seen the second half of this game like once.
Mm-hmm.
Those second levels, are they all the same, and you get to choose who you play as?
They're different. They look similar to like the earlier levels in some instances, like especially the more you fight like the Brood Queen, like alien boss. But after you beat the initial 5, you can pick whoever you want to go through the rest of the game.
That's what I thought.
After each level, you get to pick again.
Yeah.
And then each character has their own life pool. So, if you have 1 to 3 lives, then, you technically have, I don't know, up to 10, we'll say, depending on how many characters and how many lives you have left. And if you collect the X symbols all around the levels, which are pretty well hidden, if you collect 3 of those, you get an extra life, which I can never seem to get to work. I've collected some and never seems like I get them.
I only get like 2 at a time. I never see a third one anywhere.
Right. So, I've beaten this game a lot over the years just because we played it so much. And I can really only beat Magneto with Wolverine, though. My brother and I found like a cheap way to beat him, but it takes forever, like with Wolverine.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is easily one of my favorite X-Men games. I could pick it up and play it anytime. It's on my arcade machine, which is even more awesome. So it's a great experience all together.
Was so Magneto's the last boss in this one?
He is. Yeah,
which is wild because Apocalypse is in the title.
Yeah, that's what always threw me off is I don't even know if I think you fight Apocalypse in the level before the last. But then you find out like Magneto's behind it because he was like helping Apocalypse or something like that. I forgot what the story was.
I've never understood, like, Apocalypse is a boss in Spider-Man and X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
He's Wolverine's boss, but he's like so weak in there. I mean, he's tough because all those bosses are tough, but he's also, I believe, in the first X-Men on Genesis.
I was about to point that out. He's in there. He's one of the like the 3rd or 4th boss. He's not that far into it.
I think you put him as one of the worst bosses too on our episode. But I never understand, like, he was built up to be this big baddie in the story arcs. And then he's never a last boss anywhere, except for, I think, in the later Legends games.
Yeah, because he was the star of basic X-Men Legends 2, right?
Yeah.
He was on the cover and everything. But it's weird, because this one, like, the story here is, like, Apocalypse is essentially captured mutants on Genosha, and the X-Men are sent there by Professor X to bust them out. So it almost seems like, Apocalypse is, like, running things, but he's not actually there, so you don't actually fight him. But it's still weird that they would call it Mutant Apocalypse, even though I guess the implication is, Mutant Apocalypse, like the end of mutants.
Yeah.
But he's on the cover. Like, he's in the background, so it's like, I don't think you really see him in the game at all, though. And then you do go to Avalon to beat Exodus, and you fight Magneto. So the last part of the game, like the last 3 levels, I mean, they're not super long, but they felt long when I was a kid. Like they definitely felt more difficult. But everything, you learn throughout the game what your best characters are, and like it's doable. I'd say like this is the most manageable of pretty much any of the games I'd say we have on this list as far as being able to get through it, easily without much trouble, not feeling like it's too cheap. Like everything is just tuned right here.
Yep.
And it's Capcom, so they know what they're doing. The next game on our list, Deucy, is another big one. It's X-Men: Children of the Atom. This was released in the arcades in 1994. And it was also released on the PS1 and Saturn in 95 and 98, which is a pretty big spread. The PS1 port's in 1998, and I remember renting that one. This one's really cool because it's the first fighting game in the series. This is what kicked off, or would eventually kick off, the Marvel Vs. series, or the X-Men Vs. series.
Yeah, I was surprised when I played a little bit of it, because I'd never played this one before. And
I thought you played in the arcades way back at least once.
No.
Wow.
But I instantly noticed that it was definitely the genesis of all the games to come, like Wolverine saying Tornado Claw and stuff like that. That's in all the Marvel vs. Capcoms, and it started here pretty much.
Yeah, in this game, I'd say it's still pretty. Still looks pretty incredible.
Yeah.
I was pretty shocked that it was a 1994 game. Like this one, I remember it as a kid, but it felt like I was a little bit older, maybe because, the only time I really seen the arcade was when we would go to the arcades, and we didn't have many where we grew up. Like one shut down that was closest to us.
Yep.
The closest one after was like a solid 45 minutes away at least. Our parents weren't going to go take us there often, But I did get to play this, and what immediately strikes you is the large and gorgeous sprites in this game and all the vibrant levels. Like, they did an amazing job with this one. You could play as Colossus, Cyclops, Iceman. You have some villains like Omega Red, Sentinel, Silver Samurai, Spiral. And then you fight Juggernaut and Magneto. They're like the 2 last bosses in this game. They're sort of like the Sagat and Bison for this game. And this game's really cool because there's a combo system. It's like the origins of the air combos that would be prevalent in like Marvel vs. games, and the like the hyper combos. Granted, you only have one here. This game is a little bit slower. Like it's not quite the breakneck speed as the later games, which is understandable. But playing this recently, it's still an amazing looking game. I would say that it holds up more than a lot of games do from that era.
I feel like I had a lot more control over the combos too in this. Like I could just sort of freestyle a combo out of nowhere.
Yeah, I think it helps that it was slower too, because what happens with me in the later games, like especially Marvel vs. Capcom 3, like I'll watch pros do it, and like they're going like 100 miles an hour all the time, and I can't do that. Like I just maybe I could learn, but I felt like Children of the Atom was like at that pace where it was still slower, probably because of the hardware at the time. Like they couldn't make it like breakneck Marvel vs. Capcom 2 or 3 or something else. But it felt great. Like I still think this game still looks amazing. It still plays great. I don't think a lot of fighting games would be where they are if it weren't for this game. Like there's Darkstalkers, the Street Fighter Alpha series, like they all kind of share the same sort of aesthetic style.
Yeah.
But these sprites, I would say, like these sprites are some of my most favorite sprites in any game. Like they look amazing.
Well, they are, like you said, they continue on into the games, into the fighting games that we know, X-Men versus Street Fighter and all that.
Yeah, and this one, like. You can't really play it anywhere else, unfortunately, at this point. Like your only hope is to get it on PS1 and Saturn, and the PS1 version is pretty terrible. I remember being terrible back in the day because I rented this at Hollywood Video. I was so stupidly excited because I was like, yes, X-Men Children of the Atom at home, because again, you couldn't see the arcades anywhere. And I got home, it had an insane amount of slowdown. The animation looked like crap, but I was satisfied because it's the only way I could play Children of the Atom at home. I didn't have a Saturn back then. And the Saturn port, which I think was done by different developers, done by, who was it here? It was Rotubo Games. And, the Saturn was also just better in general for playing and running 2D games.
Oh, I was going to say, aren't they known more for 2D and also for fighters?
For fighters especially. Like, the ports on there are a lot better than, for the most part, on the PS1. So the Saturn has the ideal port. I have it. I was lucky to get that, like, when no one cared about Saturn, like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's one of the more expensive games now. It's like $150 if you want a complete copy, which is utterly ridiculous.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but but if you want to buy the arcade one up, totally do it, because that's probably be the better shot and the better experience, and it's still worth playing. Plus, it has online, which there's not many people playing, but you might be able to play with the buddy if you can.
But it also comes with all those other the fighting games that we mentioned.
That too, yeah. So this game, it holds a special place in my heart because it was such a big deal at the time, and again, like X-Men was still a huge deal in '94. So it makes sense that this one was still, people still have nostalgia for this and they still love it.
What's great about this is the last two games we mentioned are on the same arcade cabinet.
They are, yeah. You can play them back to back. Yeah. Okay, Deucey. So the next game on our list, it's another Game Gear title. It's the sequel to the original X-Men game that was on there. It's called X-Men Game Master's Legacy. This one was released in February '95, and this was also published and developed by Sega. This one has a similar format where you start with two characters. This one you start with a Cyclops and Storm, and then eventually you unlock Wolverine, Gambit, Rogue, Bishop, and one of my favorites, Cable, which I thought was like the coolest character at the time, and I still think he's one of my favorites. This was loosely based on the Upstarts and Executioner's Song comic storylines, which, admittedly, I don't have much familiarity with at all. But, the story here involves the Game Master. He sets up this game to, it's like a secret cure for the mutants because they're being annihilated by something called the Legacy Virus. And then the other side of this is the bosses you fight, they have that same deal with the Game Master. So if they win the Game Master's game, then they get the cure and ultimately, obliterate the X-Men. That's their whole point.
Oh, yeah. Then is it the Brotherhood or is it just
think
other
it's
mutants?
I think it's the Brotherhood. And who else is in here? There's Sienna Blaze. There's Trevor Fitzroy. Exodus. Apocalypse is in this one. Mr. Sinister and Strife. So it's a pretty good mix of villains in here. Like I remember getting to Strife and Apocalypse back then. I don't remember if I beat Mr. Sinister. I think I remember fighting him. But this one, it's similar to like the first game where it iterated on what was already doing pretty well. Reviews at the time were mixed, and they thought it was overall a good sequel, and they considered it much better than Spider-Man and the X-Men Arcade's Revenge, which not a high bar to beat, I would say.
Why were they only comparing it to that one?
I think it's because it was probably the most recently released comics, X-Men game at the time, because this was 95, and I think the other one was like, I don't know when the Game Gear port came out, but that's probably like the closest proxy they had that wasn't the first X-Men game. This is the one I owned as a kid. Like because Vito owned X-Men 1, I found this at the warehouse. It was like on where it was on sale or something. My brother and I got it.
Clearance, like you said.
Yeah, clearance, like we said. I don't know what year we got it, and we played the hell out of this too. Or whatever we could play on the Game Gear until our batteries lasted. And I have a lot of fondness for this. This one's we should have had you play this, Deuce, to see what your experience is, because I remember this one being less frustrating than the first game.
Nice. The
platforming was a lot better. The controls were a smidge better, and also I think the cast of characters is a lot more interesting. And maybe I'm just biased because, Cable's in here.
When was the first one?
94 is 1 year before that.
Was the first one on Game Gear?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I was going to say, like, maybe they had a little bit of extra time to improve things, but I guess 1 year was enough for them.
It probably was. I mean, they probably were working on it right after the other one got released right, and, like, all the work had been done for the first game, so they just, built upon what they already had, which helped. But it's a great game nonetheless. But unfortunately, like many other games on this, you can't play it anywhere except for emulation on this one. You can't unless you go buy the cart, of course. The next big game on our list, you see this one holds a special place in my heart for sure. This is X-Men 2 Clone Wars for the Sega Genesis, released in 1995. This was published by Sega and developed by Head Games. They only did a handful of games back then. They did games like Taz Escape from Mars and Pink Goes to Hollywood. So nothing too remarkable. But this game for me, X-Men 2 specifically, was one of the most awesome games I had on their Genesis back then. This one was started pretty interestingly. This one just drops you in the middle of the game, right? Like as soon as you power up.
So I played this one finally for the first time because I didn't have a Genesis back then. I don't even remember playing it at your house.
I had rented it then, and I eventually bought it, used at the warehouse, or
that makes
clearance
sense.
At the warehouse. Yeah.
So yeah, I finally got it recently at one of the game shops that we went to, and I played it for this, to dip my toes in and see what it's like, and I was, because of how my setup is, I wasn't fully sat down yet. I had to like go over to the console, turn it on the floor, and then like try to situate myself, make sure I wasn't tangled up in the cords. And all of a sudden I was getting punched. Yeah. And I'm like, what the hell, game? I'm trying to sit down and relax. Like the way it just drops you in as sort of a, what are they?
It's like a cold open. Or it's like they call it in media res. That's the other term.
And that makes sense for games now when you're on an Xbox or a PlayStation and you can just launch it from wherever you're sitting with a wireless controller. But this, what the hell, guys?
It's a trip.
I had already lost like more than half of my life, and I'd started with they randomly choose a character. I started with Psylocke, and I somehow made it through. And then I was like, maybe I pushed something and I didn't realize it. So I made it through that first section, and then the title comes, and I'm like, oh, that was very interesting, but annoying.
Yeah, so I vividly remember that as a kid, because when I rented it, I was like, oh, okay, we're just starting off. And then I was struggling to understand how to change characters because you didn't. So I knew that you could hit reset and you would get a new character. I later found out that if you're holding certain button combinations, you can also, select your character that way at the beginning.
Okay.
But, like you said, ultimately it doesn't matter because once you beat the level, then you get to the title screen and then you can choose a character. I think, that their intent there was probably to make this more of like a mature and dramatic game. Because the story in this game, it's I think it's like the Phalanx virus has contaminated, some Sentinel manufacturing facility, and it's spread to Avalon. And the big thing that was prevalent in this game at the time was you could play as Magneto for the first time. And I remember this in all the ads because he was on the cover. By the way, this cover is awesome because it has like a holographic foil on it. It's one of the coolest Genesis covers. Unfortunately, it's like on the cardboard boxes at this time, which kind of sucks. And like mine's all beat up because it's been through 30 years of moving and God knows what else. But after you get to a certain level, I think it's like after level 3, you unlock Magneto as a playable character. Like you beat him, and he joins you because he realizes that this Phalanx virus could wipe out mutants as we know it.
Yeah,
and then it becomes this insanely difficult time to get through the game, and then you fight some alien creature. I think it's like a Phalanx Queen boss or something like that at the end. But this game, for me, like it's still a Genesis classic. I would say it's insanely difficult, which is probably its biggest fault. The sprites are huge; they're pretty freaking gorgeous, And one thing I did like even back then, similar to Mutant Academy, which I can't remember if I played this first or Mutant Academy, but it had unlimited mutant powers.
Oh yeah,
right. There was no conserving your mutant powers. Like everyone had like a meter that you could charge up. So like Cyclops' optic blast would be more powerful. I think Gambit threw more cards.
Yeah, it went from like 1 to 3 or something.
Something like that. Yeah, so it was a little bit more powerful. So they totally went out with it. I was like, that's how you should do it. This is how X-Men games should be moving forward. I thought that this was more well reviewed back then for whatever reason, but I guess in general, like it was just they got mixed reviews. They didn't like the sound effects and music, which were actually two things I really liked.
That one, yeah, it didn't bother me. The first game, X-Men 1, that one kind of got on my nerves, but this one was pretty good.
Yeah, right. I thought it was really good at the time, and when I played it recently, I thought it still was pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Like it's it's one of the better things or better soundtracks on the Genesis, I would say, as far as just quality. Like it sounds pretty damn good.
The sound effects were really good too. I would say out of all the ones that I played either for the first time or ones that I haven't played as much as Mutant Apocalypse, this is probably my favorite.
Yeah, I would agree. I would easily agree with that. And for me, like it's just again, it's like one of those Genesis games that I hold as a special place in my heart, and it's like one of those things I could approach at any time. But I was surprised to read that the reviews just were not fond of this game. Like, I just thought it was kind of middle of the road, repetitive, and not much different from the first game, which I was really surprised because I thought it did a lot different from the first game.
Way better than the first game.
This is like the
I could
sequel.
beat a level.
Yeah, like this sequel is what a sequel should have been. It did everything that the first game didn't do, which was make a successful, fun game that was balanced as far as difficulty.
I do know this one once again has kind of an obscure final boss, though. You have to do something special to get the true last boss, and I can't remember what it was because it has something to do with the clones.
Oh, you know what? Now that you mention, I vaguely recall that, but I didn't read that when I was researching this game.
Yeah, because I forgot.
Oh, wasn't it? Didn't you have to have? Oh God, that's on the tip of my tongue now.
There's
I remember thinking about that when I was a kid.
There's like something you had to collect, or like
was it like the glasses?
Maybe, or there was like and that led to a secret room that you would have just walked on by if you didn't know about it, and you had to go there instead, and you get like you have to fight. I want to say yourself or a clone of somebody or in particular. And then that leads to the true final boss.
So I do remember you put like these They Live sunglasses on.
Yeah.
And I remember the clones in one of the levels, but I don't remember it being in the end. So maybe that's what you're onto is like something involved with that. Because I do vaguely recall that back then.
Because I saw it on YouTube. I can't remember if it was during a speed run or if it was just somebody doing a playthrough or something. But they were pointing it out. They were like, yeah, this is very obscure. And I was like, oh, wait till you play some of the other ones.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, that's like nothing compared to resetting your console, for God's sake, or having to pull out the cartridge to see the code to get to the last level, And then there was supposed to be a sequel to this, which I was very surprised to read. There was a game that was supposed to be called X-Women: The Sinister Virus. It was planned for 1997, which I guess I'm not too surprised it was canceled because that's kind of when the Genesis was dying, right? Yeah. And it went as far as being showcased at E3 in '96, and it got like good reception. Actually, people seemed to like it, but they canceled it for unknown reasons, and then the developer was disbanded. And I guess the only prototype that existed of the game is technically unplayable at this point for a reason, probably for technical reasons. And the only existence of this game is really just in screenshots or in magazines. And I don't even know if there was a video out for it. So it's unfortunate. It would have been kind of cool to see what an X-Women game would have been back then.
Yeah.
So the last game we're going to cover is the last game that was released for this era, and that was X-Men Mojo World for the Game Gear. This was a 1996 release. This was also released, believe it or not, for the Master System in Brazil only.
Whoa.
What a bizarre release this was. But this, again, was published and developed by Sega. So Sega did the entire trilogy on Game Gear. I don't know why they didn't do the Genesis ones or do more. It's kind of surprising that they locked themselves to that. And
the Game Gear was the only thing succeeding after they shot themselves in the foot.
I guess that's true with the Saturn. Like, they're focused on the Saturn and that winding down. Maybe they're focused on the Dreamcast, too. Who knows?
Yeah.
Like, well, we got to get X-Men Mojo World out. People are waiting for that one in 1996. So this one, again, is very similar to the first two games where you start out as two characters. In this case, it's Wolverine and Rogue. So Wolverine, I think, is the only character playable at the beginning of all three of these games. Probably because he's, easily the most popular at the time.
For sure.
Yeah.
He's front and center on every box.
He really is, yeah. And then the other characters you can unlock in here, there's Gambit, Cyclops, Havoc, and Shard, which I have no familiar with whatsoever. I don't know who Shard is.
That sounds rude.
Yeah. This game might shard itself. So the story in this one's kind of fun. Spiral, she's the TV producer of Mojo World, and she's putting through an X-Men through like a televised TV show. It's called The Greatest Battles of X-Men, and the whole point here is that she'll get everyone to tune in and see the X-Men die, so eventually she can rule Mojo World. So basically every level in this game is like a simulation. I didn't play this at the time. I played this a couple nights ago, and I would say I like this less than Game Master's Legacy. I thought the platforming in this game was really bad. Like the jumping just was really stiff. I was falling into pits I didn't understand were really there. And like the level design in this game it's not great. Like everything is just like I was on some sort of military base and like everything was just like really big and blocky. And then it did the other sin of gaming where enemies are shooting you from off screen or they just appear in front of you and you can't dodge them.
Yeah.
Because, the Game Gear screen is only so tall and so wide. So it's like if I'm at the top of the screen and the sprite hits the top of the screen, like I can't duck under this fire. Like I'm just gonna take the hit and you can't duck under. So this game in general was it didn't get great reviews. Like they thought it was totally above average. And overall, they thought the graphics were great and loved the selection of characters, but they thought it was like, it's a little bit more of the same, and it's the Game Gear at this point. So I wish you had played this one too.
Yeah.
But it's unfortunate. So I don't know. Do you see like collectively we went through like a pretty good amount of games here. I think there's like 11 or 12. But what would you say is your top? We'll go with 3 because I think there's really only 3 you can muster. Really, we'll go order them from 1 to 3.
I would say 1, 2, 3 would be Mutant Apocalypse, X-Men 2, The Clone Wars, and X-Men the Arcade.
Okay, so our list is a little bit different because I was going to say X-Men Mutant Apocalypse is 1, Clone Wars is 2, and then I was going to put Children of the Atom at 3.
Well, see, that's your fighter blood.
I guess that's true, yeah.
I still like a level to go through.
Yeah. It's like I would put, and right below that, I would probably say I'd put the X-Men Genesis game and the X-Men Arcade. I don't know which one I'd put above. Actually, I'll put the X-Men Arcade above because I should finish that.
I can beat a level in that one.
We can beat a level in that one. Plus, we could play co-op and have a really great time with that. We can do co-op in the Genesis one, but it's freaking hard. Like I used to do that with my brother, and like, the sprites are big in that game, and there's a lot of tricky jumps, a lot of tricky platforming.
Is it like Contra where it's gonna follow one, and if the other doesn't keep up, he's gonna fall?
No, it's I think like the screen stops. So you both have to be in sync or at the same speed.
Okay.
So it's not like you can leave one behind. It's just the jumping's so stiff that it's really hard. But I have memories of playing that with my brother and my buddy Alex. So, like that's why I put that X-Men one pretty high on there. The rest after that, like you could order them any way you want. Like they're not that great. Like I put the Game Gear ones somewhere below the X-Men Arcade and Genesis. But Mutant Apocalypse, like that is just. That's like X-Men Bliss for me, especially from this era specifically. Like, there's no reason you shouldn't play. Like, if you're gonna play one game from this whole list, I think that has to be the one.
Yeah.
No ifs, ands, or buts on that. All right, Deucy. Any final words before we wrap up this X-tastic X-Men episode?
No, this has pretty much covered it all. I'm looking forward to the next generation of them that we're going to get into. I know it's a lot of fighting games, like you said, but then there's just beyond that, another great level-based games.
Yeah, there's a few. There's one I would really like to cover, X-Men Legends 1 and 2.
Yep.
I remember that being a huge deal when it came out. I did love Mutant Academy, the fighting games. And I would like to talk about that awesome fighting game on PS2 that you introduced me to, Next Dimension.
Yes.
And then the other game I really want to get into and try out again is X2, Wolverine's Revenge. That was a later one that was based on the movie.
Was that like a sequel to the movie?
Yeah, and it was a stealth-based game, which I had trouble with that game too because you're Wolverine and like you get killed.
Why are you trying to be stealth with him?
Yeah, like I remember enjoying it as a stealth game, but you know it has its problems. That one will be a fun to talk about.
I enjoyed the X-Men 3 game that came out, the prequel to the movie.
Oh yeah, and I didn't get to play that one much. I've watched my brother play that, so we have a lot to cover, is what we'll say.
Yep, we might have to do a couple parts.
Yeah, I don't know how we'll break this up quite yet, but you know, if anyone out there has any favorite X-Men game memories, or you know maybe some nightmares you want to share with us, you can reach us at Legion Gaming Podcast on Instagram. We're also on Twitter, though. Admittedly, I post on there less because Twitter's kind of a bad platform lately. Like I'm just not getting anyone on there. I did the Twitter Blues thing for like a month, and there's like, you know, there's no follows like Elon Musk said there would be, or no prioritization.
Oh.
So I post them less. So I'm going to be posting more on Threads. We're on their Legion Gaming Podcast, and
Nice.
I just also got us on Blue Sky, which is like the new up and coming social media platform, and we're going to be ramping up on there. But I'll reveal more details when we get that.
Yep.
And if you want to email us, please feel free at legiongamingpod@gmail.com. So with that, we'll the next week's episode, I should talk about this, is going to be another fun one, Deucy. It's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater for the PS1, Dreamcast, and N64.
Yeah, we should preface, I don't know if we have, that these X-Men eras aren't going to be back-to-back like our Donkey Kongs, but be on the lookout for those, and I am looking forward to Tony Hawk as well.
I am very much excited for Tony Hawk. For everyone else, thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.